What up, nerds? In this video, I want to cover how to actually approach thinking about networking in Unreal 5. Now, this will also be fairly engine agnostic because it's covering the server client architecture. Uh, Very often, I see beginners struggle with wrapping their head around how networking actually works. And then once they understand that and they start thinking about things in this way, then other parts of how to design something with networking in mind start falling in place. I will also link some resources in the description below to help with some of the more finer details of networking. To clarify, this video is not going to cover when to use the game mode for something or when to use the game state for something or anything like that. It's really just tackling how you mentally think about networking. If you find this video helpful, please subscribe, and you can also check out my Steam developer page. I will link this in the description below as well. So let's go ahead and get started. So I have a fairly basic example set up here. What I have is, if we go in here, I have a custom character that when I press the interact key, all I'm going to be doing is shooting out that line trace. And if I actually hit something, I will call this interface method. And I have a simple thing right here, a simple actor where it implements the interface, and then when it actually gets called, it'll call this server method that will just print out hello. Now, if we press play and run forward and press interact, everything's good because we're in standalone. All right, so we'll switch over to the server, do the same thing, and you'll see that it still says hello. Now, if I move this to have 2 players and press play, over here, the one that I'm controlling right now is the client. Well, we can see here that I'm actually connecting the line trace, but nothing is happening. And that has to deal with network ownership. We can ignore this. This is just a default project. I haven't fixed any of those bugs that come from the default template. Now, real quick, in Unreal, the only thing that can actually call a server RPC, which is what this right here is, that's what the run on server is something that has network ownership of the actor. So because this actor right here has the server as the network owner, when the client actually does this line trace and then calls this, this method still runs, but this server interact method does not. It will get dropped because what we're trying to do, excuse me, what we're trying to do is call a server RPC on something that we do not have network ownership of. So the way to actually address this is inside of our character. When we actually say that we hit something, and we can do server interact on something that we actually have network ownership of. And then just for ease of the little tutorial, we'll just directly pass in what it is that we actually... Oh, I'm going to delete that because it doesn't have the param name correct. Server interact, and then we'll just pass this in here, and then from here we'll call interact, And over here, we actually don't need this anymore. New hello. Uh, and now, when I do this exact same thing, you'll see that it works. And here is one of the fundamental things that people get tripped up on. All right. In networking for Unreal and in general, you need to think about what machine the code is actually being executed on. When you do a server RPC, you can mentally think that, okay, once I enter this method, I am now running this code on the server. So anything that happens from this method and on with this logic is happening on the server's version of the game or the actor. All right. And that is the real big disconnect that a lot of people have, because you can't just code things the exact same way that you do in a single player game. Now, I do want to mention I am passing the direct reference to the actor in this server interact method just for the ease of the tutorial. And in an actual game, you either don't want to do that at all because somebody could intercept the network call and replace it with something else, or you can do it, but you should, in the server method, make sure that it is a valid thing that they can actually do. A very simple one is doing a distance check and a dot product check to see if they were even facing that area with some margin of error, of course. So do keep that in mind, that this right here is only for the tutorial. Now, there's a lot to actually understand, and that's why I've linked in the resources below to go more in detail about how to do an on rep, how to do RPCs, what they mean, so on and so forth. But this right here is the biggest blocker that I've seen from newcomers to networking. You have to think about where the code is actually executing. All right. Now, in the other thing that I want to talk about is a confusion on when to use a multicast RPC and when to use an on-rep variable. And I'll just create something here real quick. On-rep being when you have a variable, you come over here and you change it to rep notify. It creates this function right here, on-rep whatever your variable name is. Okay. Now, the guiding principle is you want to use a multicast when they're one-off, like cosmetic style things, and it doesn't matter if the client does not receive it. And you want to use the on rep if you're doing a state change. Now, what that means is, say you want to change your character's hat. You would want that to be inside of an on rep, because if a person joins in the game late, if you just did a multicast RPC, they won't have that updated value. And the same thing with relevancy range. If they leave the relevancy range and then come back, they won't have that value either. So if you are changing state, put it in an on-rep variable. If you're just doing something cosmetic as a one-off, like an explosion, then you want to use a multicast. Door opening is another common thing for using an on-rep. All right, and that covers two of the biggest things that I see with newcomers to networking. If you do have any questions, please let me know in the comments below. Later, nerds.